Assassin's Promise by Thomas Woodward, Chapter 154. Calian tried to search out the dancer's face, but Minerva was focusing her attention on Lord Asric and his retinue. Ducking onto a side street, Calian began to trace his way back to his makeshift hideout. He would need some coin. Having been relieved of all he carried on him, it would be necessary to resupply. Then maybe he would consider reaching out to one of the finer gambling establishments here in the city. After all, a man needed a drink now and then. He would go on the pretense of trying to dig up some information for his friend, but surely Asric understood him well enough to know he could not have Calian without also financing some small form of entertainment. Still, it worried Calian that Asric had so easily made good on his promise to hang some of the local ne'er-do-wells. Calian could picture any number of their like, hard men and women he had gambled with in the far cities, quick with a word, but quicker with a dagger in your ribs. It was part of the charm, although Calian admitted to himself that he hadn't been left with many good options that storming night when Asric had found him. He probably would have been knifed in a back alley and left for dead. Gods know he had heard of it happening before. But he could not live without the vice. It called to him. It sang in his blood. A good game of Saul brought more excitement than half of the women he remembered courting. But Minerva? She had made his blood pulse quickly in his veins, indeed. He felt like a lad of no more than 15, hard on a crush with one of the local girls. Whistling a wordless sailing song, Calian cut through dark alleys that stretched onto seedier thoroughfares, the smell of rotten fish mixed with salty spray. He knew he was getting nearer. Grimacing, Calian pulled open the heavy wooden door with a boot after unlocking the thick iron clasp. The key ring jangled loudly as he tucked it back inside his crimson cloak. Few passer-by huddled on the streets here. There would only be beggars and thieves. Often they were one and the same, he'd found. A tawdry-looking waif passed, giving Calian a dirty look he could only assume was an invitation of sorts. Or perhaps he had insulted her in some other life. Calian bolted the door behind him, the stench of the docks quickly replaced by the musty scent of wooden beams that had lain untouched for what seemed like 100 years, if the thick coat of dust was any indicator. Calian crossed the dirty wooden planks that made up a makeshift main room over to a crude chair and lowered himself onto it, hoping to avoid any splinters. For all Asric's power and wealth, he sure skimped here. Yes, Calian had been told the accommodations were meant for secrecy and to help dissuade any thought of his link with the powerful lord. He didn't give a damn. The rotten wood had numerous holes, a scourge of insects littered a heap of moth-eaten fabric that lay strewn across the entryway to one of the two adjoining rooms. Calian hated the prospect of living with vermin. As one of the only living members of his noble house, he had grown accustomed to a higher level of living than this. He refused to wield his name as a way of getting what he wanted. In fact, Calian looked down on the petty lords who did so. But there were limits. Sighing, he closed his eyes to the crumbling room and let the creaking sounds blend together in his mind. He was exhausted. Attacked twice, he wanted nothing to do with the people of this city for the moment. Sitting in the uncomfortable chair, Calian waited for what the morrow would bring. Perhaps it would bring the desire and the will for him to find the assassin. He held that thought for a moment longer before the blackness took him.